Enterprise TV, a tradition of truth.
Welcome back. If you just joined us, it's still Enterprise Morning on Enterprise TV. Friday's ruling by Justice Lawal Garba reinstating Kanu's 7-count terrorism trial at the lower federal court has effectively extended his detention, which began 2 years ago after his arrest. Kanu, a British citizen who leads the band Indigenous People of Biafra, IPOB, disappeared from Nigeria after skipping bail in 2017. He was rearrested in Kenya in 2021 and charged with terrorism. The Apex Court held that the Court of Appeal was wrong and that the trial court couldn't try him because the prosecution violated his rights. In the judgment prepared by Justice Garba Muhammad, the court condemned the invasion of Kanu's residence, declaring it irresponsible. Muhammad said, quote, "If the police should destroy the house of a suspect to obtain exhibits, should that diverge the courts against entertaining the offense? If a person has been granted bail, why did you invade his house? That is irresponsible. You shouldn't blame him for running." End a quote. I still have Mr. Elvis Elimihela with me in the studios, and joining us is Barrister Evans Ufeli. Gentlemen, you're welcome to Enterprise TV today. Now, let's start off with the big story. Nnamdi Kanu isn't free. Of course, he's not a free man yet. Let's have your thoughts on that. Any of you can take a go at it.
Nnamdi Kanu is not free to the extent that the Supreme Court allowed the appeal filed by the prosecution against the judgment of the Court of Appeal, quashing all the charges against him.
Okay.
He was discharged and acquitted by the Court of Appeal not too long ago, sometime this year. And the prosecution brought a motion to stay execution to that effect and appeal to the Supreme Court. Now the Supreme Court have handed down its judgment by allowing the appeal. Meanwhile, when the motion to stay execution was filed, now the Kanu Council also filed a cross appeal.
Okay.
Okay, yes. And what happened thereafter was that the Supreme Court have now said that the reason for its judgment is that if the prosecution, okay, have invaded the house of Nnamdi Kanu, or he has been brought back rendition, that the federal government, extraordinary rendition illegally from Kenya to this place, it does not, is a violation of the fundamental rights.
Okay.
Violation, and that the extradition was wrongly done and all that, which is solely a violation. But the court went further to say that that was an act of the federal government, the prosecution. That actually does not orchestrate or sever the court's jurisdiction to hear him on the substantive charges. Okay, so, and have therefore said that the appeal is hereby allowed, and he should be charged. They should go back to the federal high court, the trial court, where this whole thing started from, and face the 7-count charge, 14-count charge previously that was reduced by the court to 7. So that is where we are now.
True. So this judgment have swung, either way, and the Nigerian government didn't obey the previous judgment. Why should we celebrate this ruling that appears to favor government right about now? Let me start with you, Mr. Elvis.
I don't really think we are celebrating it, because from the feelers yesterday, most Nigerians were like, Nnamdi Kanu should have been released so that peace can reign in the southeast. But unfortunately, we saw it the other way around yesterday. But the legal learned brothers will tell you that the court did not did the right thing they're supposed to do. And but for those of us who are, very emotional about Nnamdi Kanu being detained and all that, and what is going on in the southeast, especially when we are not talking about sit at home, then the killings and all that, people using the name of IPOB to foment trouble.
Yeah.
That was why people were actually like, oh, let this man be released. If this man is released and that's true, and I mean, these killings, burning, maiming still continues, the federal government cannot declare those people who are perpetrating this as criminals and punish them appropriately. Well, we didn't see that yesterday, which means IPOB may, rejig their operation as it were now, because Nnamdi Kanu is still going to remain there while the process continues again. And the will of justice in Nigeria, it runs so slowly. We don't know when this matter will get to Supreme Court again, because it's still going back to Supreme Court. Even if the High Court gives their own judgment now, I know Nnamdi Kanu and his legal team may still appeal it. So it will still get back to Supreme Court. And that means that the insecurity that is so prevalent, so high in the Southeast now, will continue from now on. This is Yuletide now. Our people from that part of Nigeria
always love
traveling.
Run back home.
Like what is going on now, many of them may not be able to, they may not even find it easy to travel. And what that also means to the economy of the Southeastern people. This time around, the economy booms. People come around, they start buying things, patronizing their brothers and sisters over there, and the family also love this kind of reunion at this period. But you see, just because of this trouble that has come up, so many things are now being ruffled. But I just believe that since the Supreme Court has said yesterday the matter should go back to the High Court, let's believe that the High Court will kind of expedite some actions and make sure that this thing is dispensed as quickly as possible.
But Evans, the Supreme Court is saying let the ruling continue. Do you think Nigerians would expect judgment if this goes back to trial?
Of course. It is that Federal High Court, remember, that quashed 14 count charge to 7.
Yes.
Because of multiplicity and duplicity. Okay, so the truth is that it doesn't mean that until the trial ends, that's when Nnamdi Kanu will come out. At that Federal High Court, where they are going back for trial, the counsel to Nnamdi Kanu can now bring an application for bail.
And do you think that will be given?
That was granted before under Buhari.
Okay.
But Buhari refused, using executive powers to stall it. You understand? And all that. We were all shouting at the top of our voices that not only that you have violated the rights of this citizen, but you have also ensured that you are making the lives of the Southeasterners unbearable. Okay? If I were the judge at the Supreme Court that sat over this, what I would have done was, because the court is not mindful of the political and social condition of society. The court is, if you look at section 6 of the Constitution, the court is empowered to look beyond the fact of a case.
Okay.
Look into the implications of rulings and judgments. Okay? And do it in such a way that if society suffers as a result of manifest injustice, the court should be able to swing the hands of the human condition to a point to ameliorate the suffering of the people. That is what the law should be. That is why we say that law is the highest reasoning embedded by nature, which permits what should be done and forbids the contrary.
Okay.
Okay, so it gives you that sense. So what I would have done was, since there was a pending court order that Nnamdi Kanu be released, okay, as a judge of the, I would have as well gone on to say the extraordinary rendition was wrong, his right was violated, his the prosecution did what it did, because even under our law, it is allowed for the police to break the law as long as that is intended to obtain evidence.
Wow.
Yes, even during search, once they have a warrant, they can go outside what they ought to do if there is no suspicion that they have something.
Yeah, there is an evidence to
abuse it. They don't abuse it.
Okay.
Now, what I will do is, extraordinary rendition is wrong. What you did by chasing him when he was on bail, you invaded his house,
which gave rise to him.
It was irresponsible. All that However, there's a pending court order that he be released.
Okay.
So I would say, okay, this appeal is hereby allowed. Go back to the court of first instance, the Federal High Court, to retry him, but release him on bail based on the pending court order. So you'll be coming from home to stand trial. That's what I expected from the Supreme Court yesterday. But the Supreme Court went a different direction.
Why?
Making statements that are even inflammatory. Because if in a judgment you have admitted that this man was wronged, why don't you recompense him? Even when there is a court order, pending court order, be released. The least you could have done was to reactivate that, he be released. Let him come from home to stand trial. That is what he was doing before the federal government went to chase him. The terms of the conditions of bail were that he shouldn't grant interview, he shouldn't gather in any place where you have more than 20%, he shouldn't all that, you understand?
Which he violated. He gets invited because, yes.
He violated many. He violated many does not mean, it's not a sufficient reason for the army, not even the police, the army to invade. In that process, they killed members of his family.
Very true.
Yes.
That was not mentioned by the Supreme Court. Is that justice?
Yeah.
The Supreme Court didn't say that. So you just said that like it's a casual, there's no law in Nigeria that will stop a court from trying you just because you were a rendition or because your house was invaded. That was done by the federal government. It does not take away jurisdiction of the court to get. What is that? The Supreme Court is established to serve society. The Supreme Court was founded in 1963. From 1963 to date, I am not sure that what it has done aggregate them collectively and substantially, that it has done so very well lately to the general society and the masses. I do not think so. So, an apex court of a country should not go there. Because when we begin to criticize the Supreme Court, people go around and start to talk about discipline, to discipline lawyers from talking. But the truth is that some of us cannot see what is wrong and inappropriate. And because we are scared that they're going to discipline us, we will not say it.
But the question is this, national security, has it got anything to do with that? Can the judiciary, use the sense of national security to protect Nigeria as a reason for superimposing its earlier decisions?
Outside the Kubo versus the federal government of Nigeria, is what Buhari misquoted when he was invited as a guest at the NBA conference in 2019. He turned that law on his head that national security will supersede human rights or whatever it is, forgetting that it is a preservation of human rights that guarantees national security.
Okay.
Let me tell you, everything we talk about are laws. Once we talk about law, analyze law to the point where human rights become secondary, we have lost the essence of law completely. Why do society have laws? It's to protect the citizens. That's the essence of law in a very short form. The essence of law is to protect the citizens. That is why if you look at section 33 to section 46, they all talk about the fundamental rights of Nigerians. In fact, when he concluded in section 46 from section 33, he said, if any of the aforementioned rights has been, is being, or likely to be breached, you can approach the High Court to enforce your fundamental rights. Not just when it has been breached, is being breached, has been breached as a past, is the present, is likely to be the present, past, and future. If you notice now that the way I'm talking here, I'm most likely going to infringe your right between now and evening, you can go and file an action this morning. To say the way I'm going, there's a likelihood. I'm telling you how serious human rights is. So now, if you now underplay that, somebody was extraordinary rendition wrongly, you admitted it, his house was invaded, you admitted it, his members of his families were killed, you admitted it, and you still say that they should go down and without even activating the order to release him. He should be released. At least make a comment on it, or make a fresh order by the Supreme Court. At least that one cannot be overruled by any other court. That he be released on bail. That is what I think the court should do. With due respect to them.
Now that the case is going on trial, do we expect any form of change, Mr. Elvis?
Well, the changes we are expecting is that there's going to be some other grand lobby.
Okay.
Yeah, that may not really be from the angle of the judiciary because the law must take its course. But the political leaders of the Eastern region, especially the governors, we've seen Peter Oba, the new governor of Anambra, and even Governor Soludo of Enugu, yes, and the new Governor Soludo of Anambra. They've actually been, rallying around the presidency in all this while to see how Nnamdi Kanu can be released. I am seeing more of that coming up. Ohaneze too, they are going to play their own role. I am also looking at a situation where going back to the High Court, having stayed in the detention for about 2 years and going back to the High Court, there is another extension of staying in the detention, DSS cell, and that we don't know how long this may take. So it's possible that if this political leadership of the southeastern region are able to actually do their own work, and democracy is all about lobby, and able to push, who knows, something may come from the presidency and say this man may be granted amnesty. It's possible because we've seen it with Dasuki during Buhari's regime. Almost all the court granted Dasuki bail, but Buhari stood on it. But from on one day, we just saw out of his magnanimity, let me put it that way, and released Dasuki. Today, nobody has heard of that matter any longer. So, if the southeastern region leadership are able to, speak with the government in power, and politicians have a way of doing this, especially when they want to get the popularity of the people, and knowing fully well now that the present leadership, that's the APC government, is not really so much popular in the southeast to that extent. So the president might come in this manner and say, let me release Nnamdi Kanu while preparing his political ground towards 2027. Politicians think ahead. So I'm seeing something of that nature. Yes. It may come up. There may be a move towards that. So the Ohaneze, the governors, and the politicians in that region, they are not going to relent because the judgment of yesterday became very emotional in their part. Many of them wanted to see Nnamdi released yesterday, if not for any other reason, so that the insecurity in that part of the country can be brought down. So now that did not happen yesterday, the lobby will continue.
But the question is this: we all, if you've had the opportunity of listening to Nnamdi Kanu's broadcast, if you've had the opportunity of listening to it, there are lots of things that you would not have expected from him. The question is this: do you really think that giving him that grace of getting bail, do you think that could still pose as a safety measure for the southeast?
Yeah, what is going to happen is, the federal government will not be stupid enough and just release him on bail without some conditions. Most of like last time, the governor of Anambra, Professor Soludo, said, release him for me. There are going to be some conditions, especially this gathering, how to disarm some of these people that are using the name of IPOB now to destabilize that region, and how to make sure that granting some of these inciting statements are no longer coming from him. By the time he is released to the leadership of this region, they are going to work on this because their name is at stake. And a whole region is at stake too, just because of one person whom they have actually said is their own son. So if he is able to get this, cooperation and cooperation from them, and the government deem it necessary to say, okay, these people are credible enough for us to release it. I think he should also respect the people who rallied around him when he was incarcerated, and also play down on inciting statements, and also be able to talk to the genuine IPOB. IPOB has kind of hijacked now, all in the name of Nnamdi Kanu. So if he's out of jail, we will be able to know those that are actually genuinely fighting the cause with him, and those that have turned into criminality.
Now, do we expect any form of new evidence when we go for trial? Do you think, if there are, do you think it might change anything going forward?
Well, except if the counsel do not kind of wish to adduce more issues. But the fact that this case got to the Supreme Court, let's remember, by interlocutory appeals, not that the substantive matter have been heard and judgment passed. I hope we remember. Yes, the substantive case of the charges before them, where after those charges were read, they brought applications for bail, for no case submission, quashing the charges and all that, because the federal government also didn't do well in their own case, presenting their case before the courts. So the evidence have not changed. So how would the decision of the court below change? It's just a case where he's being kept in custody just to prolong the case in question. So I think that this issue of this political solution they are bringing to it might save the day in a way, but before that there should be another application for bail, because he needs to be released. The offense under reference is a bailable offense. Even though bail is at the discretion of the court, they can give it another attempt, okay? And you talked about the fact whether he has listened to some of his broadcasts and all that. I have listened to his broadcasts. I know that they are. And
do you think they are offensive?
No, they are quite crude.
Okay,
they are
good.
Quite very unreasonable.
Very well.
They are not. They are not. It shouldn't. I expected Nnamdi Kanu to know better than what.
Very well.
You understand?
True.
But I have suggested several times that if you look at section 21, 22, and 23 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, which was a legislation that has been adopted under our own laws by our National Assembly, which is now part and parcel of our own laws of the Federation. It is clear there because our own constitution do not give room for secession. Okay, you understand? So you cannot rely on that legislation which we adopted, the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. The aforementioned section, they lay down the procedure for which you can commence that. And sometimes this year, I learned that IPOB is considering that is what they ought to have done since.
Okay.
Yes, the reason they don't have strong and widespread international support was because they chose the violent route.
Very well. True.
You understand?
True.
And that violent route, you will not find countries or supporters that will come and queue behind you making threats, violence, and statements that are seditious. You understand? That is the reason I think they have not gotten the kind of support they need to get. If they decide to go through legislation has a way of appealing to the national community, appealing to institutions and persons. Okay, if you are doing it the right way, do it the right way first and see if that will fail before you resort to whatever it is. You cannot have a reason to say it, but you have not even tested it. The route you are going now is the same route they told in 1967.
Yes,
that led
exactly.
to the
pogroms and all of that.
Yes, that ended in 1970. Incidentally, that was the year Nnamdi Kanu was born. So, I mean, they should approach this the right way. Let the leaders of thought in the East join hands to let the IPOB group already they have been proscribed. So there's even a question as to standing under that same umbrella because they've been proscribed. Now, if they have been proscribed, I wouldn't know the legal implication if they can still use that proscribed name to pursue what I just said.
Okay.
Until we look at the laws, okay? But there must be a change of guard. There must be a detour from violence. If we have that, then this sit at home that have crippled the economy
of the Southeast.
And this there are a set of persons who also have hijacked it, using it for economic benefits and pecuniary gains. All these things will continue by this prolonged, it will continue. And even if it's released and it goes back to this violent way again about it, there will be a problem too. Okay? And I've been concerned too whether the fight is genuine. Okay, all those conspiracy theories and all those put together. Some of us, what did you go to Kenya to do?
Exactly.
What did you go to and all that and all that. So there are a lot of issues on the ground that must be unpacked. But first, they should channel the right way. I listened to Imam Powerful after the judgment. I expect that since they've already started talking about going through the legal route, that he should tailor his statement towards that direction. But he didn't do that. He was off the guard and all that. They Ugo Chinyere, one of the
House of Rep member.
House of Rep member
From Imo State.
From Imo State, or their tall governor.
Yes, Idiato.
Constituency. You know, made very prolific comments on the issue, regretting that the Supreme Court didn't do what it ought to have done, but also making suggestions, okay, calling on the president directly to intervene in times like this. You understand? I think that is how to go about it. And unless anybody did the same thing.
Yes, exactly.
So that is the way to go. You don't come out and a man's comment was more of like threatening the Supreme Court. And all that. But you don't have a good reason. They could tell you that they have a good reason to do what they did to. Okay? But either way, we should all be looking at a lasting solution. A path that will lead to peace.
Now, some would say that Nnamdi Kanu is a conflict entrepreneur. That's why some people would say he is a conflict entrepreneur who has used the agitation as a reason to amass wealth for himself and build a cult, following for him. Now, do you think, even if the whole case comes to a state where he is granted bail, do you think that entrepreneurship ness in him of using agitation purportedly to amass wealth for himself, do you think that would rest the case in the southeast of Nigeria?
Definitely, if he's granted bail with some conditions, there's going to be some restraint.
But that has been done before, and didn't.
I think it may work a little bit better this time.
Okay.
Like what he has just said, because the leadership of the Southeastern brothers have to. Then that entrepreneur you just made mention of, so many of those that are fighting for him have also hijacked it now. They know too well that Nnamdi Kanu, some people say he was living a very big life outside the country. But he came back now, some young men who did not know about the Civil War and who are not even aware of how rich Nnamdi Kanu is, has taken it from him. And they are now the guys that are holding the AK-47, as they call it now. So I don't think he too will be happy. He has the money and his boys are outside and the military are chasing them up and down. So if there is anything that is wrong, if he's actually using this conflict to make money for himself, let him even channel part of that to reform some of these boys. It's because some of them are idle. That's why they easily buy into his campaign. Yes. So he should channel that resources into making these people live good lives. And again, what says that if he's rich, he has all the money, he will not also find a way of providing some of these lacking amenities they have in their communities for the people. There are ways to fight for these rights that he is saying that they are denied of. You are denied of infrastructures. If you have all the money you can assist the government.
Exactly.
So you can assist in rehabilitating some of these young men who need jobs. You can float a foundation from whatever you have. So it's going to be a different game entirely if he really wants the peace to reign. And told the line he just said, that it is not conflict first, it is not violence first. the violence of 1967 to 1970 did not take the Biafra brothers anywhere. Unfortunately, those that are supporting him now did not really witness the civil war. If you look at what is going on in the southeast now, those who actually witnessed the civil war, they are not with Nnamdi Kanu.
True.
They are the politicians that you are still seeing today that are saying Nnamdi did not follow the right way. I listened to the speech given by Senator Yani Abaribe in one of the Igbo's conference in Washington about 2 years ago. And when I read everything he said, I saw senses in it that if their brothers are even agitating for secession, that it is even their brothers that are going to lose so much. Because if you look at an Igbo man, Igbo men generally, most of their wealth are not really in their own. It's not domiciled in the southeast. They are in other regions of places, this nation. True. And if this country succeeds, who knows the law that is going to come from those other countries as you are living? They may confiscate their properties. True. So he was talking about federalism, where an Igbo man could live anywhere in Nigeria and have the peace, could, cite his investment anywhere. And they themselves, other part of Nigeria, could also come to the east if they so wish and do likewise. So when I read that his speech at that Igbo conference in the US, I knew he was making a lot of sense. So some of those people should rally around Nnamdi Kanu and be able to talk to him if he is released. It's going to be a different ball game entirely. Let them, try to debrief him out of this violent lifestyle that has not yielded any. Do you know how many young men has been slaughtered all this while, all in the name of IPOB and ECN? So that part of agitation must be out of it completely, because even the proscribed IPOB, is it still going to come under that umbrella, that name? And who is going to? Because the federal government will not allow that name to fly again if it's going to be released. So some of these things are some of the conditions. So I would have expected that the closer you are to the people, the easier for you to even win their hearts. The old men in the village now that are expecting their children to come for Christmas that cannot come now, some of them are not happy. True. But if he comes in another form now, trying to make peace, let peace reign, and even supporting the old people in the village and all others, empowering the youth, he will even have more support than some of these brothers that don't really know the beginning of the war and when it is going to end. It has just begun now. 2021 it's been picked up since 2021. Till now it's still there. We don't even know when it's going to end now. But if there are good peace initiative now, there will be an insight into, maybe in another year, 1 year from now, we'll be able to get to this level. So I want them to actually come around him, find a way to get him out of that place. They should not relent. The politicians and the big brothers over there, especially the Ohanese, galvanize him and be able to find out to raise him. But there should be a different approach to this. We want to live on our own, secession, revolution. Those should be out for it for now. Because I don't think any sitting government will allow what is in the Constitution. The Constitution did not allow for secession of any part of this nation. Any sitting government will allow that. But if the government is magnanimous enough to say, okay, come out of the prison at this moment because of social condition, he should abide by them.
But Mr. Vance, finally, Nnamdi Kanu is still being held. Worst case scenario, let's assume that the worst happens, that Nnamdi Kanu, in the quest of serving that trial, the worst happens, that he is no longer around. What do you think? How do you think it will all play out?
That may lead to. We will not pray for that anyway. You're talking about just a scenario.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. So if that happens, it will leave a very huge dent in the struggle, and that struggle for cessation will be deepened, heavily deepened, and the likelihood that there will be violence is very high, and it may lead to further breakdown of law and order, because a lot of people will then develop pathological emotional attachment to his demise, and that will create a lot of problems.
Then why is the judiciary not seeing that? Why do you think they are not preempting that?
Yeah,
and making it and putting it into as a front burner.
The court have made this decision.
Okay.
Like I said, we need to go down there to the courts of first instance and file another motion for bail. The offense is bailable. Okay? So let him grant bail. Let's see how the executive will handle it. The executive under Buhari did not handle it well. Let's see how the executive under Tinubu will handle it. Because the court will grant him bail. So it's not even the court that's the problem. The court has granted him bail. It is the country that held him back.
Well, that's just about it. An interesting discourse it was actually in Nigeria. We would continue to pray for peace and hope that peace returns in the southeast of Nigeria. That's just about the time we have on our discussion today. And many thanks to Mr. Elvis Elimi-Hele for always, finding out time to come. And Evans Ufeli, thank you so very much, sir, for being part of our show today. And to our viewers, I would love to say thank you so very much for being part of our show. Please do remember to follow us on all our social media platforms, like follow and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Enterprise TV7. Press the notification bell so you get notified whenever we drop our contents. I am Henry Igwebika. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Enterprise TV, your one-stop shop for news, programs, human angle stories, the economy, sports, and much more. We go the extra mile to bring incredible details to you. So hop on the train now. Enterprise TV, a tradition of truth.